What's up, YouTube, and welcome to my pickups video for the month of April 2018. Once again, this is a pickups video full of a hodgepodge of stuff. There is no consistent theme, there is really no subsets completed or sets I was chasing this month. It's just a bunch of random crap that I happened to stumble on in my travels and also locally over the last month. So I'm going to show you, the very first thing I got is a Sega Master System game that is complete in the box. And this is a very hard game to find as a US release, and that is E-SWAT. You may know this game as the Sega Genesis version, which was very common and easy to find, but this was a very late release for the Master System, and you can always spot these late Master System games by the little bit more full-featured artwork, although this is not great by any means. Also has a stripe on the bottom that says that it works for Master System 2 and the Power Base converter for people that never even had an original Master System game, and then also the slightly tweaked artwork at the top. One thing I've noticed is that the European versions of these are much more common and can deceive you with the outside box art because they look very similar. And really one of the easiest ways to spot the US versions is they have the manuals in this format here where it's more of a, I don't know, horizontally opening manual, I guess you could say. Whereas the European ones are shaped long way and then they open on the short end of the spine. That was a really bad way to describe that, but nevertheless, the manuals are ultimately some of the things that are the only thing that's really different about these releases. Cartridges look exactly the same no matter what country it came from. So anyway, nice to get a nice, unusual late release Master System game. I actually found this in South Carolina. I just got back from a trip out there, and this was the only thing I found on that trip, but it was at least something somewhat unique, so it was exciting to get it. One other thing I got for Sega System this month is a very mint-in-the-box copy of The Terminator. I'm not the biggest Terminator movie fan, or do I think that this game is probably any good, but it was very cheap, and the condition of it kind of wowed me in the sense that I'm probably never going to be able to find one this nice again, so might as well go ahead and grab it. The only thing I could say about the Terminator that's kind of interesting is this game got ported to a lot of different systems, including the Sega CD, which is quite a bit rarer than this one is. There was an NES version of this, and I think it also came out on Game Boy and maybe something else, Game Gear? I don't know. A lot of different versions of this game out there, but I have no idea which one's the best because I really don't play these. So, moving on. Another thing I got that was very random this month was 3 complete-in-the-box Atari 2600 games, and all of them were games released by Activision. I don't generally collect Atari games complete in the box. In fact, I rarely ever buy the cartridges anymore, but if I did find something like this with the consistent artwork like the Activision games had, they become a little bit more interesting. So first thing I grabbed was a complete copy of Stampede. This one I can highly vouch for as one of my all-time favorites on the Atari. I don't think this game gets very much love at all, but this game is a blast to play. I've had a cartridge-only version of this for probably 20+ years now, and it was just kind of neat, just nostalgic-wise, to grab this, because I think it was one of my first Atari games I got after buying one at the flea market years after it came out. So anyway, nice complete copy of that game. Doesn't really go for too much. I think the best one of this stack was this game, Sequest. This was one of the Video Game Crash year releases, so I think it's a little bit less common, especially to find complete. And this is one I'm not familiar with. I'm not sure if this is on any of the Activision compilations. I know I have some of those for like PS1 and Dreamcast, things like that, but I'm not sure if I've played this game before. It doesn't really ring a bell, so I might pull out the Atari and see how this looks. Last one of these I got is Keystone Capers. This one seems to have a better reputation, but honestly I don't think I've played it either. I'm pretty sure this is definitely on one of those Activision compilations, but just one I can't remember if I tried or not. The one thing I thought was interesting, and I'm going to leave it on there, is it has the original price tag from April of 1983, when this game sold for $24.99. So kind of interesting to find those on the package. It does have like a little section here where there's a piece missing. There was like a game piece you could play, collect the game piece inside the box or so. I got call a number, and I think they were giving out $1,000 prizes or something like that. All I know is these are very hard to find with the game piece intact, and this one was unfortunately missing it. But either way, just nice to get another complete-in-the-box, colorful Activision 2600 game. Next I'm going to move on to Sony systems. I got one game for the PS1 this month. Again, this was not a good month for PS1 collecting. I really was hot on that for about a whole 2-year period there, and I'm just kind of running out of gas because I feel like I've got just about everything I want for it. So this was just a local find. I grabbed Rampage World Tour. I did not have any of the 3 Rampage games that came out for PS1, but definitely played Rampage a lot back in the day. And I've noticed this game is starting to jump in price, probably due to the new movie that I don't know anybody that's seen, or really why it exists. But anyway, people are buying this game now, so I figured I'd go ahead and grab it, maybe see what all the fuss was about when this came out. I believe this was an arcade game back in the day by Midway. I'm pretty sure I played the N64 version of it. I think that was much more popular, but decided to grab it on PS1. So anyway, we'll see how it is. Next thing I got is 2 new releases from Limited Run Games. Neither of these I've opened yet. They both came while I was on vacation. And first one of these is Super Hydora. A little bit frustrating, honestly. This game came out, or they took the pre-orders for this game like over a month ago, and it just now showed up, and I just think it's kind of silly business practices for them to continue to take your money, sit on it for a good month and a half, earn some interest on it, whatever they're doing with it, and then somewhere down the road you get a shipping notification and your game shows up in the mail. So kind of disappointed with that business practice, but whatever. Anyway, this is supposed to be a shooter, old school Gradius style, I think, and I've heard some decent things about it, so we'll see. It looked like it'd be kind of up my alley, and I took a chance on it. The other thing I got from Limited Run, and this one came right away, which again just makes their business practices make no sense, is this one went up. I got a shipping notification. This one showed up very quickly after that. So anyway, Senko no Rande 2. This is a sequel to the game that we got on the Xbox 360 as Wartech Senko no Rande, and it was developed by G-Rev, who is made up of ex-Taito employees, and that is just like music to my ears. So shooting game, arena style is my understanding, and probably not going to be all that great based on the first one on 360 that I didn't really care for, but I do like the developer and definitely willing to give this a shot. This one also had a higher retail price. It was like $50. I don't know if that was detrimental to its sales, because it seemed like they had a lot of copies of this left after release day that they were trying to get rid of. So I just don't really understand Limited Run. They've got some odd things going on, but nevertheless, I gave them more of my money this month. So then I'm going to move on to a TurboGrafx 16 game I actually found in a store, and this is complete outside of the exterior box. It doesn't have that, and this is, who knows how to pronounce this, V's Tactical Gladiator. That's my stab at that. I played this quite a bit, actually. I didn't think that it was going to be that great. I'd never really heard much about this game, but if you actually take the time to learn the parts of the mech suit that take damage and upgrade accordingly in between levels, it's actually kind of fun. It has some different guns and weapons that you could switch out. It uses a lot of the buttons on the control pad, even though there's just the 2 action buttons, but it also uses things like the select and start button to be part of the action as well. So definitely a nice surprise. I think this game is one of the more difficult ones to find as far as US Q card early releases, but it's not impossible by any means. And I would say if you see this somewhat cheap, it's worth grabbing if you're looking for some TurboGrafx games. So always nice to get some more of those for the collection, because you just don't see them too often. Another thing I don't see too often is Virtual Boy games, and I decided to grab a loose copy of Galactic Pinball for the Virtual Boy this month. I like pinball games. This is one that I've been kind of wanting to get complete, just never really seemed to find it, and found this really cheap, so I decided at least I could play it this way. My eyes have probably recovered from the last time I played Virtual Boy like a year ago, so maybe it's time to do some more damage to them with this game and all its full red single color glory. But anyway, always nice to find Virtual Boy games, another thing you just don't see too often. I grabbed one game for the DS this month. This is complete in the box, and this one is notorious for being one of the few mature rated games for the DS. This is Dementium 2. I think this game has some fans. I don't really know a whole lot about it, or the original one that also came out for DS, but just decided to grab it because it was really cheap, and I'd kind of heard some things about it, nevertheless. Also, that cover is super creepy. It is a hand coming out of a mouth, grasping a face. So, anyway, that's that. Moving on to a upgrade I got to complete this month is the original Baseball for NES. I don't really have a whole lot of the original black box games in the box, and I'm certainly not chasing the set of them by any means, but this one I came across very cheap and decided to go ahead and grab it just as an upgrade because my cart was kind of nasty. So got a nice complete in-box original Baseball now. Another game I upgraded for a Nintendo system is for Super Nintendo, and that is Thunder Spirits. This was very nice condition. It had the original box, the manual, the poster, and the warranty card and all that kind of crap inside. So This game is absolutely horrible. It is one of the worst shooters on the Super Nintendo, and it's a big shame because this was Thunder Force 3 on the Genesis, incredibly watered down and with a ton of slowdown added for the Super Nintendo. So, unfortunately, if you like the Thunder Force series, this is not the way to play this game. You definitely want to get the Genesis version, but definitely nice to have another boxed complete shooter for my Super Nintendo library. So, anyway, moving on to some non-game stuff. So, one thing I got as a totally random walk in a game store and impulse purchase is a arcade marquee for one of my favorite games of all time. And this is something that I don't normally collect, is arcade marquees. I have a couple arcade games, but don't really have the space to store a bunch of marquees. But anyway, I'm going to see if I can show this to you kind of in a scrolling fashion. This is a marquee for the arcade game Gun.Smoke by Capcom. Thought it was kind of interesting. Like I said, I don't normally collect these by any means, but this one I wanted to hang on my wall as I really am a big fan of the original Gun.Smoke arcade game. For some reason, I actually find this game better on the NES. I like the NES port, the way it plays better than the arcade game, and so given that, I don't really think I'm going to collect the actual arcade board for this, but just a very cool game by Capcom that doesn't get enough love, so I thought I'd get this cool looking marquee hanging on my wall, maybe start some conversations about why more people should play at least the NES version, if nothing else. So anyway, that is my marquee. I also got some magazines, so you know I like collecting old video game magazines. I got some kind of unique ones this month. One of my local stores actually got in a big lot of magazines from a collector. They were advertising on their Facebook that they had all these Nintendo Powers, and I'm like, yawn, whatever. But they had some other stuff that came in with that lot, and that was actually what I was more interested in. And the big thing I got was a stack of Videogames magazine. What an original title that is. This one is actually somewhat decently written. I would say they were like mid-90s period. Definitely some of the peak of a lot of systems being released, and they seem to spend a lot of time focusing on things like the Jaguar and CDI. I read more CDI reviews in these magazines than I'd ever seen in like EGM or GamePro or anything like that. So they seem to be willing to give some of those smaller systems some love. Just giving the history of this magazine, this used to be known as Video Games and Computer Entertainment, and I had seen some of those magazines before. They took out the computer game coverage in these, which is a benefit to me, and so really just strictly focused on the video games. But then they also started incorporating things like cheat codes in these, and ultimately they had a section of this magazine called Tips and Tricks, which then evolved the magazine into a different magazine called Tips and Tricks Magazine. So if you've ever seen those, this is actually the father of Tips and Tricks Magazine. So anyway, I'll show off the stack of these I got. First one of these is Alien vs. Predator. Then we move into a Eternal Champions cover. This one's kind of nasty. It's like falling apart, but whatever. Had some good content in it. Then we have a Justice League Task Force cover. Decent cover, but really bad game. Then we move into some of the more CD-based systems, later issues. I have the Gex issue. This is when they were starting to talk about Saturn, PlayStation, stuff like that a little bit more. This one is the Primal Rage cover. Again, one of the later issues. And then I move on to some other magazines I got this month. First one of these is a just random issue of GamePro with a Street Fighter cover I didn't have. These do not really hold up well. I like the amount of games that GamePro covered back in the day, but the writing of these is just atrocious. I would much rather read those Video Games magazines if I could find more of them. And then actually probably the coolest magazine I found this month was also from that store. I got a very early issue of Game Fan magazine. This is like volume 2, issue 2 or something like that. Maybe one of the first 10 or 11 of these that they printed. This actually had some really cool coverage in it. There is a lot of good import Japanese and European game coverage in here. And they really actually looked at systems beyond even Jaguar and CDI, and they talked a lot about the FM Towns Marty in this magazine. So some nice reviews of Marty games that were coming out of Japan at the time that definitely caught my attention. So this was a good read. Some of the, I would say Game Fan's biggest downfall, and this continued on for many years beyond this, is just their graphics style. It's so hard to read the print on some of these sections of the magazine, but overall has some good information that you really couldn't get anywhere else at the time. I mean, keep in mind the internet was not around yet at this point in any major capacity, so nice to find an early copy of Game Fan. I like getting these whenever I can find them. They're just very difficult to find in stores, and I have a feeling most of these sold in the West Coast because that's where they were published at the time. Out in the Midwest, you just don't see these early issues very often at all. So anyway, that is the stuff I got this month. Hopefully you like this video. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.